Hello, as you can see, I'm back in the Synod office again today. It's certainly a change of scenery, but nonetheless, it's time for me to share my talk with you for today. On days like today, when it's sweltering and thundery, at least here in Fredericton, I'm reminded of a novel I had to read for a school exam. It's called The Go-Between. It centers on a young boy who was caught up in a doomed relationship between two adults in a hot summer before the First World War. The idea of the story was to reflect upon an age of innocence before the horrors of 1914-18. Everything reaches its climax with a storm. Usually, when my mind is taken to that novel, it then moves on to a book called The Go-Between God by the late Bishop John V. Taylor. It's a classic text from the 1970s, which in essence begins with another storm, the arrival of the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost. It's comprised of 8 chapters, which were originally a series of lectures. Taylor's main aim is to consider the role of the Holy Spirit in mission. He suggests that every human encounter is potentially sacred if it's touched by the Holy Spirit of God. Basically, he argues that when we meet, there is a gap between us which can be inhabited by the Spirit, who is the go-between God. If allowed, the Spirit can transform things from an ordinary interaction into something touched by the divine. This, of course, is reliant upon our being aware of the potential of the interactions we're engaged in. Let me give you an example of what I mean. When I first began serving at Stone Church, one of the things I wanted to do was begin a monthly meal for people who might need one. It was expected by some that we could use the opportunity for the preaching of a gospel message. A few years earlier, I would probably have been fine with that. But as time had passed, I'd learned that treating people as those who are beloved of God, who have lives like mine with its joys and challenges, is a better way to go. In practice, what that meant in the context of the meal was we needed to sit down with people and deliberately get to know them and allow them to get to know us. This created a space for the go-between God to work. It was also interesting to discover that this is not a one-way street. The Spirit taught both of us things as we talked. This, of course, leads us, in one way at least, to the E in bells, eating. The important thing is to understand that allowing space for the Spirit to work is vital. It's then that we have sacred encounters which God is able to use for good. Are we willing to intentionally allow space for the go-between God? Thank you again for being here today and for listening. I trust that you're having a good day. God bless and stay safe.